Good morning. Good to see you all. We're here at the Newark Recycling Summit, and we've got a lot of good things going on, and it's good to get good people together that want to accomplish something. Now, someone told me that if you have a closed hand, you're not going to get much. Open your hand, you got a big chance of giving or getting. So what we want to do is talk to each other because we got a lot of smart people here around these topics that we're going to cover. And we want to have open mind like an open hand to share. Because anything you do, anything that you see that's good, take it, use it, and we can improve what we're doing by learning from you as well. So this is going to be a major sharing event, and smart people come up with a lot of good things. So our goal in this conference is to increase our residential recycling participation and decrease our contamination. Thank you.
Good morning. Just like to first thank DPW and all of the other partners that are here today, Office of Sustainability, all of the people. I shouldn't have started that because I'm going to have to name everybody and I'll be in trouble if I forget some folks. But I just want to thank everybody for being here, all of our public and private partners that are here who understand the necessity to recycle, to the importance of sustainability, to make sure our air, our water, our soil is not only good, but good enough for generations to come after us. Recycling is becoming more and more difficult for municipalities all over the world and more expensive because, you know, there are 3 or 4 people who are making these, who are arguing worldwide around these tariffs that are making it very difficult for us to continue around sustainability. So when we think of ideas and we become creative about how to one, get more people involved in recycling, and 2, how to get folks to recycle on their own outside of just municipal and state and federal opportunity to get them to do that. In Germany, they have this program where they set up machines in the supermarkets, and people can come in with their plastic bottles and put the plastic bottles in the machine, and they get a voucher for food, for groceries. That is an awesome idea that we have been starting to think about even locally about trying to replicate something like that on this level. But we are thinking every single day with the help of the folks in this room and some folks that are not in this room about how to get better at recycling, at sustaining our environment. So I appreciate everybody who think this is not robbery to be here today, to have a conversation about how we recycle better, how we recycle more efficiently, and get more people involved. And I just love these posters that our young people put together as well. And getting the young people involved is the key. The more we get them involved, we can get their parents involved, we get communities involved. So getting our young people involved in this struggle, in this fight to maintain our environment is necessary for us to do. Is actually going to help us propel what we want to do forward and even faster. So again, thank you for coming out today, being a part of this. It is extremely important to this administration, extremely important to our city and to the state, I know, as well. So we need all hands on deck, all minds engaged, and all creativity and imagination a part of what we're trying to do here in the city of Newark and around the state of New Jersey. So thank you. Have an incredible conversation this morning.
We're also blessed to have our municipal council president here to give us greetings. So I'm not going to be a long talker. I want to get her up right now.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Let me thank Director Khalif and Kim Green and all of those who have put together this seminar on recycling. We certainly thank Mayor Raz Baraka because he is an innovative and creative leader. And so we are here from around the state of New Jersey to come together and work together and find solutions to litter. Recycling is critical. And everyone in this room, believe it or not, has recycled. Even within your home, a dress that I wore and that I outgrew went to my sister. Shirts and pants and shoes that gentlemen have outgrown have gone to a brother. That's a form of recycling. Recycling is to use what has been already a part of what we do, what we wear. And so it's critical that we do this. Yesterday, the Newark Municipal Council passed its first recycling bill. Somebody had a clap on that. And so we stand in solidarity with our department heads and leaders as you make decisions on how to make this a household activity. I love the theme for which the students did posters. Every piece of litter has an owner. And I had not thought about how personal litter is. And so we need to have a program in our schools. And I don't know, is anyone here from the Board of Ed? If not, I am going to speak to our superintendent, Roger Leone, and get them involved in the solutions that are going to come out of today's meeting. I do have to give a special shout out to Passaic Valley. Sure, it's commission. I happen to be a commissioner for that particular entity. So I encourage all of you to have a great day, exchange ideas, and and remember that I'm freezing. Anybody freezing? You know, my brain is cold. So I hope somebody from Rutgers is going to turn up the heat a little bit. But certainly the outcome of today will make life better. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Council President. Our Chief Sustainability Officer, Natalie Falone, will give us comments at this time. Natalie. The overarch. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, folks. It's great to be with you this morning. My name is Natalie Augusto Filione, and I serve as the city's Chief Sustainability Officer. I'm going to spend just a couple minutes summarizing a couple programs that we do out of my office. But I also wanted to start off the day with something that I did at a conference that I attended on green infrastructure. And I'm going to prime you first, talk a little bit so that you think while I'm talking, and then we'll go from there. So we're all here today. We've been motivated to come. In some cases, we came completely of our own accord because we really care about this issue. In other cases, we were maybe coerced by our boss or someone to be here today. In every case, every single person in this room is going to walk out of here with some new knowledge, some new information, and we hope some inspiration for taking this information back and being a change maker in your home, in your faith community, in your school, in your workplace, or in the community, right? Depending on the circles of influence that you each have, you're able to help address this issue. We know that this issue isn't something that's going to be solved just with everyone making changes. This needs to have the bottom up and the top down come together in order to address this issue. But the ask that I'm going to ask you to do with other folks in your table is quickly think of an analogy, a metaphor. So we here represent a kind of body of people who's going to take this information back into the community. So how would you think of that in analogy? What are you, right? So an example might be that we are light bulbs, right? We're going to go back, we're going to shine a light, we're going to bring this information. Another example might be that we are mosquitoes, right? We're going to go back and we're going to infect someone with this knowledge, right? Think about that a little bit. I'm going to share a few remarks and then ask you all to share back some of the ideas that you came up with as a table. So the Office of Sustainability does this work in a very intersectional, multidisciplinary kind of way, because I think everybody understands that these issues aren't in silos. We can't possibly address this by just thinking about it from, only the waste transfer facilities have to make something different, only the mayor and council have to do something different, only us as individuals in our homes have to do something different. There are a lot of small changes that are going to get us to success. And so our sustainability action plan is organized in a way that is very connected. So we want to make our city cleaner, greener, healthier, more prepared to face the impacts of climate change, and more engaged, such that all of the work that we're doing to make our community cleaner, greener, healthier results in economic opportunities for Newarkers. All of those things are deeply intertwined. And so what you'll see, even just in the representation of people that are here across the tables, is that we're talking about, do you want to sign up for a mini grants program in your community so that you can do a community cleanup and reduce the litter, or maybe get a bunch of your neighbors together to all have a similar process, or like all have the big bins, etc. You can get these from the city, right? But we don't have enough for all 285 residents in the community. So that means that there is some kind of need for additional funds to cover this. And that's one of the activities that the Love Your Block mini grants program could be used for. My office is also running the Adopt a Catch Basin program, which is asking folks to volunteer to basically babysit, to be a steward of a storm drain. And as you'll see from the table here that HDR set up in partnership with the Department of Water and Sewer Utilities in the city of Newark, we're asking folks to help us keep those catch basins free of debris, because the waste that goes down those end up in our waterways. And in a given year, we collect out of the netting facilities. We have these big tanks that kind of catch the water before it makes it into the Passaic or into the bay. Those facilities removed last year nearly 2 tons. So imagine 2 blue whales, the largest mammal on the planet, worth of trash, right? If we did a better job of making sure those don't end up in those trash, sort of storm drain catching netting facilities, that we wouldn't end up with that kind of trash in our waterways, contributing to the microplastics that are causing baby albatrosses to die from malnutrition, because the little bits of plastic that they eat that they think are fish eggs are making their stomachs full. Do you know, like, this is all so interconnected. So those are the little pieces. I know that's like super downer. I'm not trying to like start everyone off with the downer pieces, but I do want us to see ourselves as individuals as agents of change. Please consider coming up with an idea with your neighbors and applying for a small grant from the city, anywhere from $500 to $2,500, to do something that shows your love in your block, how you're making your community cleaner, how you're beautifying your community, how you're helping revitalize. Please also consider adopting a catch basin near you. It doesn't take much, and we give you free supplies. We encourage artists to come out and paint them. That helps beautify our community and helps raise the level of awareness about the entire sewer infrastructure that is just below the surface, right? If you don't think about it, then it's out of sight, out of mind, but this brings attention to those issues. I'm sorry that I went super far over. I'm going to hand it back to our host and give you all a warm thanks for being here, because you really are part of the change makers that are going to make this, this revolution in greening our community and our world happen.
Oh, good morning, good morning. All right. So my name is Tariq Roland. I'm from the city of Newark. I've also worked in the Department of Sanitation for about 4 years. I'm not a recycling expert or waste management expert, but I think that my experience from working on the back of the garbage truck and street sweeping I think that I'm kind of more than qualified to be able to understand the importance of this issue. So for me, while doing this research, I found out, you hear a lot of people speak about what people need to do at the top, and I want to focus on just today, like what we can do at the individual level, as far as self-accountability. And I believe that if we do our part to clean up our community and communities like ours, then it starts with us. So I'm going to give you about a 5-minute presentation just on some things that I feel like that on how we should be aware and some statistics that you probably didn't know of and the importance of this issue. So here's my presentation. So there's 3 things that I believe when it comes to personal accountability and responsibility. The first thing is that we must become vested stakeholders. So what does that mean? It means that we must have an interest and a commitment to recycling in our community. The second thing that we must do, we must educate ourselves how to properly recycle, how to not mix our trash, and understanding which recyclables are able to be disposed of together. So what I found out that, so whenever we hear recycling, we just tend to throw everything, cardboard, and bottles, cans, pizza boxes. And when we educate ourselves, or in educating myself, I've found that, that I thought that I was doing a good thing, but I'm mixing pizza boxes with grease sauce in bottles, and that's not how it's supposed to be. So I kind of was doing myself an injustice and thinking that I was doing good. So we must educate ourselves. That's the second thing. And lastly, especially for those from the city of Newark, or who live in the city of Newark, is that we must believe that this work can be done, and we also must understand that it's going to take a collective effort from our residents, our community members, the Department of Sanitation, and also our partners. Okay, sorry. Okay, yes. So plastic and other waste, it enters our rivers, kills our wildlife, and even in our oceans. One-third of recyclables, materials that are produced, don't actually even reach those collection sites. They actually are disposed of in the streets. They reach our rivers and things like that. And if such materials continue to be produced and are not properly disposed of, those materials will a statistic says that that fish will be outweighed by plastic by the year 2050. So here's some benefits of recycling. Recycling reduces litter and pollution that will otherwise enter our natural environment, which we know. It decreases the volume of waste that are burned and buried at waste sites. And the inhalation of pollutants decrease tremendously. So life expectancy, we live longer, we are able to breathe better. I know in the ironbound section there are severe asthma cases with children because a lot of waste sites are down there, and it's how those air pollutants get burned because they're not properly disposed of. Here are some more benefits if you didn't know. It boosts our economy. Products become, so the products that are recycled, they actually become less expensive because now when you recycle them, they don't cost as much to reproduce or to resell. Our city municipalities such as Newark will benefit because our landfill expenses are cut. So we're not just dumping everything in one site. Things are being separated and distinguished properly. And recycling creates jobs. Not only are we creating a healthy living environment for ourselves, we are also able to employ people. And I think that that's always a good thing. Now this right here, I don't understand everything with the health, but I found this out and it didn't look good to me. So I figured that I'll put it up on the presentation just so we can see what happens when we don't recycle. So I'm not a health expert, but just if you want to take a picture or some notes on and see the effects of it. And lastly, it's going to take an effort, right? And while we are not responsible for producing such plastic cans, bottles at a massive amount, we are the ones using them. Therefore, we must no longer neglect our community by not recycling. Rather, we must ensure that we are not perpetuating environmental injustices amongst ourselves. Thank you. I hope this was helpful. Enjoy.
Morning, everybody. So Kim mentioned he wanted to have some youth represented in the conference today. We also wanted to have some older guy represented in the conference today, so that's where I come in. I've been in recycling so long, I was actually at the signing ceremony when Governor Tom Kean signed the mandatory recycling bill in 1987. I was there for, it was my first month on the job, and I was like, wow, this is great. I get to go to the governor's office, have parties, but it's been a long road, and I've seen a lot of changes in recycling over the years, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an update of one of the key issues facing recycling today. You know, while there's been a lot of attention of late on disposable plastics and food waste, which are undoubtedly hot issues, the hottest issue of all in the recycling world, in my opinion, and the one that I'm going to discuss today, is the recycling contamination issue. The famous American writer Mark Twain was on a speaking tour in Europe in 1897 when a rumor about Twain dying while on tour surfaced and spread back in the United States. Upon hearing this, Twain famously stated that the reports of my death are greatly exaggerated. I think the same can be said for recycling. I don't know if you've seen the articles in the newspapers or online over the past year that have sounded the death knell for recycling, but I'm here today to tell you while these are dark days for recycling, recycling is still alive and maybe not well, but hanging in there. If you have not seen these articles, they tell of recycling programs struggling to find end markets for the materials collected, plummeting prices for recyclable materials, collection costs going up for municipalities and counties. And while this is true to varying degrees, the picture is not as bleak as they make it out to be. I will discuss the light at the end of the tunnel later in this presentation. So what is the root cause of this situation? In my opinion, it is the recycling contamination issue. By contamination, I'm referring to anything that finds its way into a recycling bucket or bin that does not belong there. Some prime examples are plastic bags, which are the worst offenders, polystyrene coffee cups, garden hoses, syringes, bowling balls, and of course trash. Contamination also occurs when the right materials are prepared the wrong way. A good example of this is when people put shredded paper in their curbside recycling bucket. Shredded paper will not get through the processing system at a recycling center, and so it will either contaminate other recyclable materials or get disposed as trash. Next, we must ask, what are the consequences of the recycling contamination problem? While there have been numerous interrelated consequences, I believe the most important consequence is the loss of the Chinese recycling market. As you probably have heard, China has for many years been the primary recycling end market for most of the recyclable materials collected in the U.S. Roughly half of the recyclable paper and plastic collected in the United States, as well as many other materials, has been sent to China over the last 2 decades. However, over the last 5+ years, China woke up to the many environmental issues that it faces, including a myriad of waste management problems. So starting in 2013, China began to closely inspect incoming loads of recyclable materials entering their ports. They quickly realized that these loads of materials had high levels of contamination, and this was no longer acceptable to them. So they implemented new and restrictive quality control specifications and began rejecting loads that had too much contamination and sending them back to the United States. They further tightened their quality control specifications in ensuing years and finally closed their door to the import of several recyclable materials. With the Chinese recycling market now virtually closed, recyclers around the world began scrambling to find new end markets for the recyclable materials that were starting to pile up. And as we know from economics, when supply outstrips demand, the price of a product falls, and that is exactly what happened with recyclable materials. Most people don't realize that recyclable materials are commodities that are traded in a global marketplace, just like oil, corn, and gold. The decline in recyclable material commodity prices has been felt along the entire recycling chain and has negatively impacted the economics of recycling all the way down to the processor level and the collection program level. As a result, recycling costs have gone up all over the country. This is not just a New Jersey phenomenon. While this situation has resulted in some people questioning the need for recycling, recycling still makes sense for numerous environmental and economic reasons, and of course it is still the law in New Jersey. The next question to ask is, how did our recyclables get so contaminated? Here are my top 5 reasons. Number 1, single stream collection. Back in the early 2000s, most recycling programs switched from dual stream collection to single stream collection. In dual stream collection, bottles, cans, and containers are collected in one curbside bin, while paper and corrugated are collected in another bin. This contrasts with single stream systems, which allow users to mix all recyclable materials in one container. In my opinion, the switch to single stream recycling seemed to send a signal out to people that you could put anything and everything in your recycling bucket, and they did. The second reason is what we call wishful recyclers. While you always get some people who simply do not care about recycling, most people do care and try to do the right thing. Some people care so much and try so hard that they contaminate the recycling stream without even realizing it. This last group is what we call wishful recyclers. These are dedicated recyclers who put non-acceptable items in their recycling bucket in the hope that they will get recycled. This wishful recycling results in contamination. Like a perfect example, in the springtime, you're buying plants at a nursery and you have these plastic garden trays, and someone will say, well, my town collects plastic. I'm sure they can handle this plastic recycling tray and recycle it. But no, that becomes contamination in the recycling stream. The third reason is confusion. Some of the contamination that occurs is simply the result of people being confused about what can and cannot be recycled, and this is understandable. I should point out that this confusion is widespread and not just a New Jersey issue. For example, most people know that a number 1 PET plastic soda and water bottle should be put in the recycling bucket. But how many people know what to do with the number 1 PET plastic chicken cutlet package? Recycling education programs around the country are now promoting the slogan, when in doubt, throw it out, to help deal with this scenario. The fourth reason for the contamination issue is variations in recycling programs throughout the state. Our state's recycling law calls for the 21 counties to each develop a recycling plan, and in that plan they list the recyclable materials that have to be recycled in that county. While all the county plans initially call for and still call for the recycling of the basics, newspapers, bottles, cans, corrugated, over time the requirements began to differ from county to county for a variety of reasons. So what's recyclable at your home in one county might not be recyclable at your work in another county, and this variability contributes to the recycling contamination problem. There can even be differences in recycling requirements between municipalities in the same county. Over the years, some of the more active municipalities went beyond the county requirements and added other materials to their list of recyclables that had to be collected. So what's recyclable in one town in a county might not be recyclable in another town in that same county, and this variability contributes to the recycling contamination problem. I should point out that this is not unique to New Jersey. The state of Connecticut had the same problem, but to simplify things, they recently passed a law that calls for the entire state to recycle all the same materials. And number 5, not enough recycling education and enforcement. When programs switched to single stream in the early 2000s, worldwide recycling markets were very strong, prices were high, and China was accepting everything and anything as their economy boomed. As a result, there was no incentive for processors and local recycling programs to focus on educating residents about quality control or embarking on recycling enforcement initiatives. When China began to crack down on the recycling contamination problem in 2013, many bad habits had already been formed, and bad habits can be difficult to break. So let's look now at some of the positive trends in recycling, as well as some proactive steps municipalities and counties can take to improve the outlook and performance of their recycling program. First, some of the positive trends. The first one is new international markets. In response to China closing its doors on a lot of recycled materials, new international recycling markets in India, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia have emerged and have taken in some of the supply that previously went to China. While this is good news, these are much smaller markets than China, and they were soon overwhelmed as well with material and had to impose their own quality and quantity restrictions. Another positive trend is new domestic markets. Also in response to the changing international recycling market, numerous domestic recycled paper mills and recycled plastic processing centers are now in the works here in the United States. These facilities will consume many thousands of tons of recyclable material collected from curbside programs. While this news is music to the ears of the recycling community, it will take a couple of years for these facilities to come online and have an impact. Another positive trend is that materials are moving. While markets are not strong, recycled materials are still moving through the system and getting recycled. So we don't have mountains of recyclables being stockpiled all around the state. And some prices are up. The price paid for certain recyclable plastics like high-density polyethylene pellets, clear PET pellets, and polypropylene flakes are all up since last summer, so that is a good sign. And there's a new focus on quality control at recycling centers. Recycling center operators around the state are now doing more inspections of incoming loads of materials and are working with towns that need to clean up the recycling mix. They've also slowed down their conveyor belts that the recyclables travel on at the processing center so that staff can better remove contaminants from the mix. And they've also added staff to their processing lines to catch and remove more contaminants. So what are some proactive steps that can be taken? Number one is education. First and foremost is the need for improved local recycling education so that residents better understand their local recycling requirements, the importance of keeping recycled materials clean and free of contaminants, and the idea that recyclable materials are not trash but rather valuable commodities. To support recycling education at the local level, the DEP purchased the Recycle Coach information system for the entire state. Recycle Coach provides specific information about local recycling program requirements through a web link and, more importantly, through a cell phone app that enables users to have this information at their fingertips. The DEP has also made available other resources, including promotional graphics, infographics, radio public service announcements, podcasts, articles, and presentations. And all that material is available online on our recycling website. In addition, my office developed and just recently released at the end of May its Recycle Right NJ Recycling Contamination social media campaign. This campaign consists of 20 graphics, captions for each, and hashtags for communities to post on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and other social media platforms. Hopefully you've seen these posts or are planning to use them. I will quickly run through them at the end of my presentation. Recycling program costs can also be reduced by using free online resources for producing educational and promotional materials. So lots of great information on the web. In addition, Sustainable Jersey provides municipalities with helpful online resources and grant funding to improve their recycling outreach. And of course, the Association of New Jersey Recyclers is also another great resource. Number two, enforcement. Educational programs are just part of the solution. Enforcement at the local level is essential to the success of any recycling program. Curbside recycling inspection programs can dramatically reduce contamination of the recycling mix and improve the marketability and value of the recyclable materials collected. Several New Jersey municipalities have implemented successful recycling enforcement programs, resulting in increased participation rates and declining contamination rates, and I know they're very willing to share their success and how they went about doing this. Some other proactive steps and resources are DEP grants. As you probably know, the DEP annually provides municipalities and counties with recycling grant funds that can be used for a variety of recycling program needs, including education and enforcement. In fact, the DEP announced earlier this year that local governments will share $14.3 million in recycling tonnage grants to further enhance recycling efforts. You know, this program has been around for a long time, so no pun intended, you might take it for granted, but not every state has a program that gives recycling grants back to the municipalities. So it's a big plus here in New Jersey. In addition, the DEP modified its recycling tonnage grant distribution formula this year to better financially support municipal curbside recycling efforts during this challenging time. In fact, there was a 16% greater payout per ton for the bottles, cans, paper stream in the 2016 grant cycle than there was in the 2015 grant cycle. And another increase is being discussed for the 2017 grants. The DEP also funds the Recycling Coordinator Training Program at Rutgers University. This comprehensive educational program teaches recycling coordinators how to improve efficiency and cost effectiveness of their recycling program. And again, this is a big investment in local recycling education by the DEP. Another step that some municipalities around the country are considering, and as well as in New Jersey, is a return to dual stream. Some towns are considering a return to dual stream where you separate your bottles and cans in one container and your paper in another, as opposed to staying with single stream. Dual stream collection typically results in less contamination and thus cleaner, more marketable recyclable materials than single stream. In New Jersey, the borough of Oakland and Wyckoff Township made the switch back to dual stream in 2018. There are, however, numerous factors that would make a return to dual stream collection systems difficult or impractical for many programs. And finally, many recycling programs are also going back to the basics to enhance the cost effectiveness of their program. By no longer collecting materials that have not been mandated in the county recycling plan and are of low value with limited markability, costs can be reduced. For example, municipalities that are part of the Morris County Municipal Utilities Authority program are now collecting 3 types of plastics instead of 5. At this time, I would quickly like to run through our Recycle Right New Jersey social media campaign. And what we did in this campaign was we identified what had been shown nationally to be the biggest, the materials that were the most likely to contaminate recyclable loads. And we wanted to provide resources that you can use on social media and websites and target those materials. Okay, so the first one is recycling contamination occurs when the wrong items or the right items prepared the wrong way are placed in your curbside recycling bin. Contamination crisis. Recycling contamination damages machinery, limits the resale value of recyclable material, and can cause recyclable materials to be sent to the landfill. Don't be a clueless contaminator. Keep these items out of your curbside recycling bin. Skip the bag. Don't place your recyclables in plastic bags, and you probably know this is a big one. Greasy predicament. Don't place pizza boxes in your recycling bin. Pizza boxes are one of those weird materials. Some places that will accept them, most places don't. The ones that do accept them say you have to take the greasy part out, but we're providing this because most of the state does not collect pizza boxes. Metal mayhem. Keep cookware, paint cans, and car parts out of your recycling bin. And we have a few variations of the metal mayhem. Propane problems. Don't place propane tanks in your curbside recycling bin. Of course, that's a very dangerous situation. You would think that we did not have to have a slide about not putting diapers in your mix, but you would be surprised what you find in there. So don't put dirty diapers in your curbside recycling bin. Food filth. You want to keep the recyclable containers as clean as you can. They don't have to be perfect, but we don't want a jar full of mayonnaise or jelly. And the terrible tanglers, this is a category that includes things like hoses, wires, clothing. So we have a few of those. Recycling's most unwanted, and I've talked to many processors, and you'd be surprised what they're getting, and they're getting garden hoses, bowling balls, you name it. And here's the slide about wishful recycling. A lot of people don't realize they're contaminating the recycling stream. And as I mentioned, when in doubt, throw it out. That's the new mantra. And be an informed recycler. Here's a plug for our Recycle Coach app. So I thank you very much. And if you have any questions on this campaign or anything about recycling, I'd be happy to take a couple of questions if we have time. All right. Oh, there's one question in the back.
Did you mention something about shredding the papers? Don't put it out on the curb or something?
Now, shredding, when paper is shredded, even though paper is recyclable, once it's shredded and it goes into a curbside program and sent to a processing center, the paper shreds will fall through the screens and will contaminate other materials or be disposed as trash. There's no way to separate that at a recycling center. What we tell people is if you have paper that needs to be shredded, save it for one of those county or municipal shred days and just bring it to that event. Because once it gets shredded and goes into a processing center, they're not going to be able to recover that material.
I have a question. You said there are 5 types of plastics. Is all plastic recyclable?
Well, there's actually 7 types of plastics in that plastic resin code system, 1 through 7. And when you think about it, theoretically, anything is recyclable. But practically speaking is a different story because you have to be able to collect the material, have an end market that wants a processor that wants to accept it, and then an end market that wants that material to be made into a new product. So many of the plastics, while theoretically can be recycled, there's no practical recycling market for them. Right now, the strongest markets are for number 1, PET, and number 2, HDPE. And number 5 is pretty strong, which is polypropylene. 3 is low-density polyethylene. There are some markets for that, but a lot of places around New Jersey are now focusing on the strongest plastic markets.
Can you just tell people how they know if they have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 type of plastic?
Yeah, if you're not aware, containers will have a little code on the bottom. It's the little recycling arrows, and in the middle there'll be a number. And while I know the industry had good intentions for this, the problem is it gives the impression that everything is recyclable, because if it says number 5 on the bottom and your town only collects 1 and 2, you can't put it in your curbside bin. So even though the industry is making it look like it's a readily recyclable material, it may not be.
Quick question, to piggyback on this question already that was asked. If you shred your paper, like personal information, you just want them to put it in regular trash?
No. No, if you shred it at home, you can bring it to your shred day, and they'll take that and just put it in a paper bag.
Okay, because I think some of the residents at my site, if they shred, they put it on, bag it in a clear bag and put it in the outdoor. So they should not do that.
Well, it's better to put the shredded paper in the trash than in a curbside recycling bin that's going to a material processing center. But even better is if you shred at home, shred it into a paper bag and then bring it to a county or a municipal shred day, and they'll take that.
That's a lot to do.
Well, the question is if you're in the process of collecting garbage or recyclables and you see contamination, what should you use? So let's say you're collecting recyclables. What a lot of towns across the country are doing now is they have curbside inspections. If they see materials that shouldn't be in there, they put what they call an oops sticker on the load and they don't take it. And when you don't take the recyclable materials from the curb, what happens is you get a lot of irate people who then call the town and complain, why weren't my recyclables taken? So you have to have the political leadership at the top know that temporarily we're going to be getting a lot of calls. But eventually, when people start getting these warning stickers, these oops labels, you're going to get more compliance over time. It's an initial shock to the system, but it does work. And the gentleman from the Recycling Partnership later on, he's going to be talking about this, I know, in more detail because they've done a lot of great inspection programs through the Recycling Partnership.
Our guys take that and they go to we have a
Well, the first thing you want to do with pizza boxes is check your local or county website to see are they accepted in your program. Most programs are not going to accept them because the grease and the food that's left them in are a problem. I know like Morris County, they say we'll take them if you cut out the greasy food parts. So it really is very specific where you live. But I think it's safe to say the vast majority of New Jersey does not collect pizza boxes. In the absence of a recycling option, then that goes in the trash. All right, well, thank you very much, and I appreciate you inviting me to this summit.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Napier Humphrey. I'm the site manager for Waste Management's Newark recycling facility. Today, me and Pedro are going to talk about some recycling, of course, some opportunities with the market and the headwinds, and some more opportunities that we're facing. But I'm going to start out with what the running theme has been, which is contamination. So we're going to take a look at Waste Management's footprint. So as you can see, we have a pretty big footprint across the U.S. With about 43 paper recycleries. Sorry. 43 single stream plants, 37 paper plants. If you look at the bottom there, you can see that we've taken in about 9 million tons of paper last year, about 3 million tons of organics, hundreds of thousands of tons of glass and metal. So as you can see, we have a lot of material coming through, and as you can imagine, we have seen a lot of contaminants. So I'm going to go through some of the weirdest things we've seen.
This is going to be fun.
From number 10, mannequins. Well, you all wonder where mannequins go when they pass on, right? They come to us. Bowling balls. Now, bowling balls have been mentioned, and we have collected about 82 tons of bowling balls. So I think
So all you bowlers out there, I'm watching.
and I think they made of polyethylene, but they're not recyclable. Tombstones. Who throws away
Fact.
tombstones?
This is fact. Right.
Radioactive material, which is, of course, radioactive, and it's really harmful for the environment. So it's thrown in recyclables. It gets in there somehow. We've had a black bear. Now, that's probably a bear who has climbed into one of our containers, right? Got trapped in there. We picked it up and ended up in our system. Number 5, grenade launcher.
Who has got grenade launchers at their house?
A real grenade launcher.
Not recycling.
Not at all. What was that? Oh, yeah, marijuana. Okay, so that person had to be high. You gonna throw away your own stash? Okay.
That must have been a mistake, right?
Right.
I mean, the right thing to do is take it to the authorities, not put it in the recycling bin, right?
Now, this is a weird one here. This is a engine for a rocket launcher from the 50s. Now, whoever had that in their basement must have been a pretty big basement or a rocket engineer or something, but that came across the line. Someone's great-great-grandfather's World War I helmet. That, you know.
Are you guys ready for the next one?
Number 1, a live 6-foot boa python. Now, I mean, our systems are really automated, and we have a lot of automation going on with screens, but we do have employees who stand there and sort. And these things come up the lines, and you know, this is what they experience in the recycling plants. This is not even garbage, it's recycling.
I imagine you're the manager, right, at that facility that day, and like your employees call you up, and they're like, "Boss, come on up. I got something for you. You know, something's going on the line. We got some downtime, some contamination." And then you show up and you see that thing. What do you do?
And
I run.
Right, and you're the only one there because they're gone, and they leave you. Okay, there it is. But so these are some of the odd items here, but seriously, we have the issue of contamination is a big one. Early on, we talked about screens. A screen is a piece of machinery that sorts out the product. So if it's a cardboard screen, the cardboard rises across the top, the paper falls down the bottom. But through tanglers and plastic bags and things of that nature, you can see on the top left, that is a picture of a screen that is bombarded and tangled up with all kinds of tanglers. We spent about 140,000 hours last year cleaning these machines. So when the production is going, the machine is stopped, right? And that takes up time and effort and adds to the expense of trying to process these materials. Also, you'll see the bowling balls, like we mentioned earlier, 82,000 tons. As was mentioned, the batteries and propane tanks, which are a big source of fires in our plants. So it's all about education, right? Education, knowing what you can and can't put into the garbage. This here is a snapshot, a pie chart that shows the top 3 contaminants. Of course, we spoke about one being plastics. Plastic film is number 2. Now, plastic film is something, if you go to the dry cleaner and you get your clothes in that clear, long film, it's a wrappable. It wraps around real easy, and it's a problem. And of course, as was mentioned earlier, bagged garbage. So that's another. It takes time to open up a bag and dump out the garbage in the system, and then that bag becomes a tangler. So the more we can keep those bags and those things out of the recycling system, the better we are. So it's about education, and enforcement. So Pedro's going to come up and speak on some of the market opportunities, headwinds, and opportunities.
Yeah, go ahead. So, Humphrey, I guess I'll take the clicker from you, right? I'm going to go ahead and just sit down here because I like being part of the crowd. So you can see I'm the loud one. He's the more like, you know. Listen, I get excited about recycling, guys. I've been doing this for 16 years. I don't feel the excitement. I don't feel it. I don't feel it. I'm not feeling it. Come on, recycling, recycling. What are we here to do today? We're here to recycle? We're here to learn about recycling. We will recycle today. We will recycle. Kim's going to make sure of that, right, Kim? All right. Listen, we got a lot to talk about. Steve did a fantastic job earlier talking a little bit about the status, sort of the status of recycling. He talked about a lot of the same points that I'm going to talk about, so I'm going to skip around a little bit. But I'm really here to really just energize you guys a little bit today because I think we need some energy around recycling. But it really starts with understanding what's going on first, right? What's really going on? We'd say a lot of things about the right thing to do, recycle right, all of these things that are out there, but there's so much. There's so much to talk about when it comes to recycling, and it's really a lot about what's changed, right? So Humphrey talked about, he showed you contamination. That was real. We are really seeing those things show up at our facility. Like, we didn't take that off of Google and just put it up there for a laugh. That was real. So all of that contamination problem that we just briefly talked about has caused China, as we learned earlier, to really just shut the doors on the rest of the world. China was the biggest importer of recyclables. They are no longer the biggest importer of recyclables. They are still taking some recyclables, but in 2020, they're gonna ban all imports, right? Why do you guys think China's doing that? Because they had a recycling summit, and they had a crisis. That's right. They had a recycling summit, and somebody sat there, and they had a pollution summit, and they were like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me we're taking the rest of the world's trash into our country? We can't even manage our own. Did you guys know that China sends delegates over here to learn how to manage their own landfills? They don't know how to do it. They are now learning how to manage their waste, and that's how we've gotten here. So we're doing a poor job, the rest of the world is doing a poor job recycling, contaminating our recyclables. We're sending our stuff over to China. For many years, we've been getting away with it, and China finally said, enough, right? Enough. Today, we're going to say enough with the contamination, right? When we leave here today, we're going to have that same approach, that China approach. We're going to say, we're done. This is enough, guys. We got to move on. We got to do a better job as human beings to really manage our recyclables and save our planet. That's what China's trying to do. They're trying to save China. There's a problem in China, right? And here we are contaminating recyclables, giving China this big issue. This is a map of the globe. And you can see China is up there, big part of the world, right? And you're going to see at one point how much, the biggest percentage of recyclables went into China. At this point, it's kind of just floating all over the world here. There's a lot more domestic mills than there are today than there used to be. India took a bulk of the material at one point, and now some of that is going into Southeast Asia. So this is how material is flowing these days, and it sort of gives you the last 3 years, and you can see the changes year over year over year of where the material has been sort of moved to. We talked about how, listen, we have been able to move material. Recycling continues to happen. You put your stuff out on the curb, what happens to it? It disappears. It's like magic. Before I started working for Waste Management, I had no idea. I'd put my bin out there, and it just went away. I never thought of it. I was like, what do you mean? There's this whole, I didn't know, going to China, really? I never thought of it like that. But that's where it goes. Or that's where it went. Now it's going all over the place. You guys see Europe up there? They are kicking our butts when it comes to recycling. They are the leaders in recycling, all right? I think someone talked about Germany and some programs that they have, and, you drop off some stuff and you get some coupons back to buy some food. That's fantastic. I mean, that's some innovative thinking. That's the type of thinking that we need to leave here today with, right? And go out there into our communities and apply it. So this is what's happening today with recycling, all right? It's sort of dispersed into different parts of the world at this point. And we're bringing, listen, the China problem put a lot of their own companies out of business. The government instituted policies to just, I mean, the mills that were there can no longer purchase material. These are billion-dollar companies that are now closing their doors in China and having to figure out, now what? Well, what they're doing is they're going to Southeast Asia. They're moving back to the United States. It's actually creating some work for us. It's bringing back some jobs. It's not a bad thing, guys. But contamination is. All right, so supply and demand. A lot of people hear about pricing. There's a lot of folks here from the town, and you know, there's you know, at the end of the day, one thing you guys have to remember is that recycling is a business, right? We all in this room want to do the right thing for our planet, but we can't do that if it's not done. Listen, at the end of the day, we can pick out as many pieces of recycling we want, but somebody has to process it. Somebody has to remake it into something. It's going to cost $1.01, right? There's a cost associated to all of it. And with like any business, there's a supply and demand factor, right? So when there's a lot of supply, you know, if you sell ice creams and the other guy down the street is selling ice cream and two guys down the block are selling ice cream, there's a lot of ice cream, there's a lot of options. You might want to work on that pricing, right? Because you're not going to sell your ice cream for $2 if the other guy down the street is selling it for 50 cents, right? So when you have a lot of recyclables in the market because China has stopped processing and we've flooded India and Southeast Asia, there's a heavy supply. Anybody in here has stopped buying anything since China had their, you know, great green fence efforts back in 2013? Anybody stop buying anything? I know my wife hasn't. I see those Amazon boxes just show up every day. I'm like, what are you doing? She never buy me anything. Anyway, supply and demand. All right, so there's a lot of supply. The pricing, that has driven pricing south, right? There's a lot of materials in the market. India is not going to pay you top dollar for recycling when they have a lot to choose from. And they're not going to choose the stuff that's contaminated either, right? This slide sort of breaks out, you know, sort of the newspaper, mixed paper by country, sort of where it was going. You know, we kind of talked about that a little bit. This is sort of a graph on pricing, and you can see year over year sort of how it's plummeting, what pricing used to be for commodities, where we are today. So I think we got from 2017 to 2019, pardon me, I don't have my glasses on so I can't see it perfectly, but back in 2017 and even in early 2018, we were in much better shape than we are today. I mean, we are rock bottom pricing. I am actually paying someone to take my newspaper away, where newspaper at one point was selling for as much as, you know, like $150 a ton. So as a recycler, as a recycling business, we're not doing so well. We're not doing so well. And again, all of that stems from where we've come, you know, from the China issue, right? Contamination. Another problem that we're having is, you know, a good problem is that there's a lot more cardboard, right? It's a good problem for me as a business because it actually has a little bit of value yet. But the packaging has changed a little bit. And that's the same for a lot of different things. A lot of you folks maybe drink water, Poland Spring. You've noticed that the necks are shorter, the tops are smaller, and it feels lighter. You know, so I'm going to give you a real quick study on, you know, on that. So there's a machine called a T-Tech. If you've never seen a T-Tech, I suggest you Google it. Everybody write down T-Tech, optical sorter, T-Tech. All right, I want you guys to Google it, check it out, research it. It's awesome. All right, that thing does amazing things. It literally separates all of your plastics. So plastic bottles, number one. Who's got a number one plastic? Anybody? Somebody. I see plastics everywhere. Plastics, number one plastic. So there's a Poland Spring bottle. Can you hold up that bottle there? All right, that's a PET bottle. So the T-Tech, you tell the T-Tech, hey, I need to pull out PET bottles from the rest of the bottle stream. So that's a number 1 type plastic. I need to pull that out from a type 2, right? Now for us, we got to pick it up, look at it, go, yep, that's a number 1 that goes here. That's a number 2 that goes there. And I could probably do that at like 45 picks per minute. A T-Tech could do that at 1,000 picks per minute. So it's pretty smart. It has different settings. You can adjust it. You can change it, and it works. I'm not even gonna go down that rabbit hole because it's amazing the way it works. But research it. Research it. I don't have enough time. Kim said I had 30 minutes. So T-Tex will separate your plastics. Okay, it'll do it at a very rapid pace. And there's like I don't know, something like 325,000 PET bottles in one bale to make a ton. Well, that's changed. Because the bottles are smaller and lighter, now I need maybe 1 1/3 of that. So maybe I need 400,000 bottles to make a ton because manufacturers are making lighter bottles. So what do you guys think that means for a business? So if before I could pick out, so let's simplify it. If the T-Tech could pick out 2,000 bottles an hour, all right? And now that 2,000 bottles gives you a ton of material. And I get paid $100 a ton for that material. But now it's lighter and I need 3,000 bottles to make a ton. And now I got to run an hour and a half to make $100. So I got a negative impact because, yes, sir, very good. You want a job? So yes, it's a negative impact to the business. Now I got to run half an hour longer to make the same weight of material that I'm being paid for at the same rate, right? So it's the changing of commodities. So you see the tin cans there, the Star-Kissed tuna fish, that's changing to alternative packaging. That packaging is not recyclable. So there's things that are disappearing from the recycling stream that as a business we're never going to be able to capture again. We can't recycle that stuff, so it's going to go in the residue, and bottles are getting smaller and lighter, so it's taking us longer to process. Plus, contamination. Now I got to slow down the system because I need to get all the contamination out. I can't put any contamination in my bales. My bales have to be clean for me to be able to sell them, all right? So when we're talking about pricing and, what's really driving, all the pricing today versus, listen, when I came into the recycling business here in Newark back in 2011, we were rebating as much as $50 a ton for recycling. Today we're charging as much as $80 a ton. All right, it's a $130 swing in 8 years. It's pretty bad, right? So recycling is a business. We have to think about it as a business if we're going to try to affect recycling and clean up some contamination. So what does all that mean for recycling? We really have to, recycling at the end of the day is still something we want to do. It's still the right thing to do, right? It's still something that we have to do if we're going to be responsible stewards of our planet, right? What hasn't really changed is, people still want to do the right thing. We're all in this room for that reason, right? I don't think anyone in this room is here because they just wanted to get some time off from class, right? You guys are not here for that, right? All right, okay. So we all want to do the right thing, and we can continue to do the right thing. There's still a law that says we have to recycle. It's still a mandated law, right? What has changed in the last couple of years? The markets. Markets have changed. There's no more newspaper market. Well, there is. There is a newspaper market. It's very slim. It's very small. Mostly mixed paper now is being sold. Not a lot of people are buying mixed newspaper anymore. Quality is more strict. So, think about at one point it was 10% or better for the contamination percentage, the allowable contamination percentage, 10% or better. We're down to 0.5%, so 0.5% is the restriction today than at one point. That's very difficult to achieve, very difficult to achieve. Operating costs have increased. We talked about that, right? Think about it as a business. You know, we need to reframe what we think as recycling, right? So recycling is the right thing, you know, and there's a lot of, so what does that really mean, right? It's the right thing. And, you know, we put a phrase up there that says, we must recycle those materials that can be made into new products. You know, I go to a lot of events where people ask me about all types of stuff. Like, people want to do the right thing. I want to do the right thing. I want to recycle, so can I throw my chair in my single stream? Because it's plastic, right? I mean, I think we said it earlier. Is it recyclable? Yes. Is the right thing to throw it into your single stream or dual stream recycling program? No. So can we recycle it? Yes. Do you want to put it at the curb? No, right? No. So we have to have that mentality, like, you can recycle everything. You can find solutions for everything. I saw something earlier about recycling batteries. You know, if you look around the room, there's a couple of solutions for different things. People just have to have the will to want to do it. You have a question? I like questions.
Because, like, I've been throwing out I guess I'm a wishful person, but I always thought I was hardcore. But I throw away those plastic bags and stuff along. I thought it was good that
Can't hear you.
I think it was good that the manufacturers had stopped using the plastic the metal cans and had gone to, and now you tell me they're non-recyclable. You know, I get boxes from Amazon probably more than I should. What do I do with those? Do I have to take the tape off? Do I take the car rate? You know, what do I throw those out? So am I creating landfill versus recycling? I mean, that's a turn my brain's gonna have to make, because for years I've gotten to the habit of plastic, cardboard, I'm doing the right thing, tin cans, and now I feel like I'm not. So I would love a whole entire list of the things that you think, I mean, not a whole entire list, I'm sure it's wide, but like, when you go to the laundromat, you know, from now on, do I need to tell my laundromat to start giving me those plastic bags?
Yes.
Because it's just contributing now to landfill.
It is.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
Absolutely. And so that's a great point, right? So the right thing means understanding what the right items are, right? And, you know, as I'm getting deeper into my slides here, it's really going back to basics when we're talking about recycling. Let's simplify it, right? First and foremost, in terms of household recycling and what you want to put out at the curb, right? Look at these trash cans. So those trash cans up there? They're full. They're completely full. That person must be like a great recycler, right? They're like fantastic. Like, if I go out there and I'm like, you know, I got my weak, you know, small trash can that I'm rolling out on recycling day, and then I look at my neighbors, I'm like, man, I'll never compare to that, right? Just because it's a full can does not mean that they're great recyclers. Because what's in the can? It's plastic bags. I don't even know what's in the plastic bags. And today, most recyclers won't take plastic bags, right? So I see a couple people raising their hands. Give me an opportunity, and I'll give you guys an opportunity as well, right? So the right thing means understanding what the right thing is. So going back to basics is very important. Your newspaper, your office paper, right? Non-shredded, and your bottles and cans. Water bottles, detergent bottles, your, you know, who likes Chinese food? I like Chinese food. Yeah, if y'all haven't noticed. Those little containers that the Chinese food, you know, people put in the little plastic containers now, if you flip them over, you'll realize they're number 5. Those are tubs and lids. We talked about that earlier. There's some value there with tubs and lids. That is a recyclable product. It can be recycled. So numbers 1s, numbers 2s, and numbers 5s have the most value, and that's what recyclers are going after. Because that's where they can make their money and sustain their business, which will allow us to continue to recycle. Does that make sense for everybody? All right. So keeping it basic. I've had somebody ask me once, they took off their eyeglasses, and he said, you know, look at this little eyeglass lens when it breaks, and I got to recycle it. What do I do with it? Do I put it in with my bottles and cans? And I said, man, that's some passion right there. I wish everybody had that passion for recycling. But no, don't put it in with your bottles and cans, because it's going to go in the trash. It's not going to make it through the screens. It's not going to get picked up by a T-Tech. But there are solutions. There are companies that sell solutions for those eyeglasses where you can put them in a box and ship it back. You have to have the will to want to do that. That is doing the right thing, right? That is doing the right thing. But you have to have the will to go online, look for those solutions, or maybe the municipality will have it online, so they'll have some solutions for you, all right? So she raised her hand first, if you don't mind. Go ahead, what was your question?
Yes, Newark Housing Authority. Now, basically, what I hear is that you're speaking about houses. Okay, that's what I hear. Like a container for cans and bottles, a nice little case, by your back door. Okay, so I don't know if this is going to take place in my lifetime, but like, for instance, a large building. Exactly how would you do a large building? Because you basically hear it talking about a house.
Correct.
So there's a lot of buildings that are large with a lot of people. So therefore, you can't have the people go out inside the hallway, with the cans, and you can't have them go outside the dump these things inside the, container. So therefore, each apartment would probably have to have a bin. That's going to cost a lot of money. So HUD better give up some more money. No. Now, okay, so the things like grease, diapers, and things like that can't be recycled. So those type of things would go inside the regular garbage, just plain garbage. And then I got my cans and my bottles and my this and that. What? Okay, so all I wanted to know was about a large building.
So it's a challenge, right? With every municipality we do business with everyone that we try to educate, that actually always comes up. So that's a great question because you're dealing with it's not like, you got curbside pickup, you pull up to a house, the DPW guy comes out, looks at the can and says, that's got contamination in it, we're going to put a sticker on there and leave it behind so everybody knows what's going on. Now you're talking about quite a bit of material, whether it's commercial pickup or picked up by the municipality. It varies from municipality to municipality, but it really has to. You have to take the same approach so that someone needs to be inspecting it, right? So does the building have a super maybe that can go back and take a look at what's being put into the container and go, wait a minute, we got a problem here, right? Or can the building put together a recycling committee that starts some education throughout the building to start to really enforce and really engage the folks in the building. Listen, most people want to do the right thing. They just don't know what the right thing is. When you educate people to do the right thing, I mean, why wouldn't you want to save the planet that you live on?